Hello friends, welcome to a new stream recap series. This time it will be in Rome 2 Total War, and I'm running the Divide Et Impera 3-part mod. If you've never heard of me, and I can't blame you, my name is Kyle, or the Randolphski. As a content creator, I mainly stream on Twitch. Would you like to know more? Said in the spirit of Starship Troopers, the link is in the description below. The aim of these recaps will be to tell the story of our playthrough as Carthage, in the DEI mod, that's short for Divide Et Impera, which is a full overhaul, changing the dynamics and pacing of battles, as well as adding in a population and supply system that has to be maintained and cultivated as your game grows depth. I'm also running some cosmetic mods as well as agent mods and general portrait mods. Here they are here in this lovely PNG. But as we start out, here is the map as it lays. I will be looking to update this at the start of each episode with gains, losses and the known area of the world to us as we expand our reach. In the beginning, the decision was taken to strengthen our holding on Sicily and try to charge anyone to enroute us. The city holdings were upgraded and we prepared for the inevitable incursion of Rome. Hopes were placed upon Syracuse holding to their treaties. It was also decided that we would send our faction leader, Hamilcar, out west to secure the northern African coastline for ourselves, an easy task, we assumed. We attempted to also seek out as many trade treaties as we could, as, after all, we are a Mediterranean trading power. There was some success in some people who would not even entertain a meeting, but our economy began growing. Our first pitch battle of the campaign came against the Gaetuli, in a challenge to consolidate our borders and provinces. The battle was set, location chose, and our faction leader led an unexperienced and untested army into the battle in the desert. These warriors were outnumbered and in unfamiliar territory. The aim was to use our infantry to pin the enemy, then hit the anvil with the hammer, our cavalry. The lines engaged and a desperate melee began. More or less straight away, it was apparent our lines would not hold and our cavalry was actually outclassed. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, our men's morale plummeted down like a crashing wave. Our first expedition out west was crushed and left fleeing into the desert. What remained of our forces then attempted to retreat to southern Hispania, but were caught in an ambush by the locals. This time we managed to scatter their troops out of their tight formation, and our cavalry, combined with elephants, ran them down, breaking their resolve. Our troops, battered and beaten, had no time to rest and recuperate. They had to retreat back to Tengus, where the army that previously won victory over us stood outside of the settlement's walls. It was to be a busy campaigning season. While hostilities picked up in the west, the struggle in Sicily was ramping up. Despite significant investment in our settlements there, we were left worried and bracing for the worst. Which way would Syracuse declare? And then the attack came. A full army of Syracusans attacking Acragas, which barely had a garrison within the walls. Being ill prepared for an attack, a town centre focused defence was the choice and we deployed in depth. The plan was to lure the enemy into a long drawn out melee and bring troops in from the flanks hoping to panic and cause a mass rout. With the enemy baited, the trap was sprung and every man, every set of hands were on deck. The locals were used to charge and close the flanks. We knew regardless of the outcome, casualties would be high. But if we won this, there would be some respite and time to recruit and replenish. With the square beginning to resemble a box in of which the Carthaginians were the walls, the Syracusan horde would be put to the sword, and none left to escape. The turmoil in Sicily had well and truly begun. As always with any campaign in Rome 2 and DEI or Total War, there was no time to celebrate. Tengus, out in the west, then came under siege once again. This time it was another army from those barbarians off the African coast. Our standing army of professional troops was battered and bruised. Nonetheless, a spirited defence would be mounted. The walls were quickly lost, and the last remnants of our forces fell back and reformed in the shadow of the walls, as the garrison and the people of the city became the pillars of our defence. High from victory, we rallied out and aimed to run down the remnants of the Gaetuli tribe. With their morale broken, they were not hard to surround and bait with our skirmishers. First we isolated their general, then we attacked frontally with our infantry as our cavalry manned the flanks. The poorly equipped yet numerous tribal warriors were scattered back into the desert. This decisive and complete victory truly threw West Africa's future up in the air. We looked to lick our wounds and go back at them. I feel like I'm about to get whiplash here, but with Acragas pressed and little time to replenish, we looked to recruit local mercenaries to bolster our defence of the city. With a large mercenary contingent, we looked to man a bridge between our holding and the enemy's capital, moving the fight away from the town. Then, again, whiplash, our army in West Africa was attacked in the field as they were replenishing and mustering. Honour wouldn't allow us to retreat away from these dogs. After some careful repositioning, we moved in to intercept. The battlefield was far from ideal for either side, with hills upon hills. What felt like hours of manoeuvring took place on both sides, which meant that none of us had ideal terrain. That's when our skirmishers and some of our light infantry managed to start peppering their rear guard and forced the beginning of the brawl. The enemy general, to his credit, charged bravely in, attempting to give his warriors a chance to retreat. Luckily, our commander committed his own bodyguard to the fight, and we caught him early, slaughtering him and many of his closest retinue. Now the rearguard had been dispatched with and routed from the field. The main section of their army had formed up on top of a hill where they had very much planted their flag. The assault was then on. An opening engagement at the front and a flank from our cavalry combined with the elephants meant victory was ours once again. And with this win, we pushed the enemies from our land and began preparing for an offensive. With the Gutuli on the back foot, we pressed towards Rotubis and placed the siege. We were outnumbered here, so knew we had to act fast. Luckily, before siege preparations were completed, the enemy sallied out, and we took to the field once again. With the enemy arriving to the battle in two phases, the decision was made to rush the first army and try to capitulate them before the second arrived. A precise and dare I say perfect encirclement was orchestrated, and the enemy were dropped to a man. As always, no time to rest, reposition, and reforming of the lines was the priority, as the second wave was coming crashing in. The morale damage of killing one of the enemy's generals and wiping part of their army was apparent. The second force barely had the stomach to fight, and very quickly began dissolving away against our now veterans of West Africa. The western provinces were ours. Hamilcar, leader of House Barkid, stood victorious. The people loved him, and the other political parties started taking note of this. The absolute villainous scum decided that while our poor people were at war with Roma, Syracuse, and half of Africa, now was the time to start a civil war. Out of all of the places they could have raised their insurrection, they chose Akragas, a city on the frontier of the war where we were already weakened. Defences were prepared, and we awaited their advance. The Adum's successors, they called themselves. Outnumbered and outclassed, our men took to the streets joined by the loyal local plebs. If they were to take the town, it would be an extravagant cost. The Square of Death, as it had been known, was full once again. Lines of hoplites clashing as fellow countrymen plunged spear and sword at one another. This was clearly taking a toll mentally on the attackers, as all it took was for the main body of their army to be attacked in the flanks, and they began routing and faltering. With this, the main resistance on our already weakened frontier was broken. And with that, Stream 1 came to a close. There was plenty of back and forth, highs and lows, and I feel like we end in a strong position, yet it is not without the flames encroaching. My friends though, thank you for your viewership. If anyone has any advice or things they would like to see, just let me know, and until the next one, goodbye for now.